Hi guys.
Pretty bright.
I don't think I'm going to use there's not enough light there. You can just barely see that. Get rid of that. I think that one. Let's try it. Cancel. That one I have to keep. So, how am I going to better off with light up there. Let's try it. Hey, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Jim. How are you this morning?
Good.
Good.
I feel like I'm really on the ball because I got online before D. Harwood.
Ah, too funny.
I'm tinkering with
Good
my
morning.
Well, hi, Donna.
Hey,
Yeah, hi, Donna.
how are you, Dee?
I'm good.
I'm up at Brent and Heather's. She's fixing her breakfast, so don't think anything about the sounds in the background. The baby just got put down.
All right.
Oh, did we freeze?
Glad you could join us. And you've got someone making breakfast for you. It sounds luxurious.
I've already had breakfast. She just dropped Brooke off at school and now she's eating her breakfast before she has to leave for her work.
Okay.
She's got to go to the flower shop and make Valentine flowers.
Oh boy.
No, this is Jim Green. Come and see Jim Green.
Busy season. Good morning and good morning, Glenwood.
This is Heather.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, Heather.
Are you the archaeologist
Yes,
connoisseur?
he's the archaeologist connoisseur. Amateur.
Not an archaeologist. I just
Well, you
read
guys
a
have
bit about it.
the three of you?
Yeah, there might be a fourth one. Ellen might join us. I don't know. Is she joining us today?
I think so.
Yeah, his wife, Ellen.
Okay.
And then in the evening class, they have a lot of people.
We'll have about 15 this evening.
15?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a well-attended class. I was telling Heather about this, that this is the way that we're proving that the things that are said in the Bible are really true is by studying the archaeology and connecting the two. So it's although we believe everything the Bible says is true, not everyone does. So that archaeology is important for it.
Gives us some roots.
Roots. That's right. Roots.
Fruits.
Um,
Have fun.
Yes, I've got a
Yes.
class at 7 and I'm recording these
Are
classes
you?
as well. So yeah, they're now posted on YouTube. So
Yes.
believe it or not. So
And I didn't get to review my class from last week. I haven't had time today, so I'm just going to have to wing it.
All right.
all right.
But thank you for sending the photos. That's great to have those a little ahead of time.
Oh, the
Oh, yes.
PowerPoint slides. Yeah.
Yes, the PowerPoint. I always forget that word, PowerPoint.
And Donna, you got the link, the email with the link to the recording, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, it came out.
Yes, I used that last week. I went over the class that we had just had because there was so much in it. And so I was able to watch the movie on the Dead Sea Scrolls and finding and all that kind of stuff and claiming the encampment where the people that lived there outside of Jerusalem. Can't remember the name of the little town.
Qumran. Qumran.
And they had the rubble and the leftovers from that. And so they were talking about the sea.
Donna, your video is frozen and your audio is sketchy. So,
Oh, okay. It might be the microwave, Heather said.
oh,
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
the
Yeah.
other thing, if you have trouble receiving us, the other thing you can do is turn off your video, and that requires that's less demanding of your Wi-Fi there.
I heard that yesterday when we were doing our Bible study. They said that if your things are not working well, just turn off your video. And nobody can see you, but it's still you can hear
Yeah,
what's going on.
but you're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Hi, Ellie.
Microwave was off.
How was your workout, Ellie?
Good. Nice and short.
Okay.
Nice and short.
Oh,
Shorter the better.
that's the advantage of starting right just minutes before class. So you don't have to
Yeah.
work very
Yeah,
long.
I had a good. No, good excuse.
Well, I think the four of us is a quorum. So
Okay.
shall we jump in?
Yeah.
Good to go here?
Yeah.
Click a couple of buttons and share my screen. That should do it. Okay, well, glad everybody is here. Thanks for joining us once again. I appreciate your interest and your attention. So, Bible and archaeology, but our topic today is coins. But before we jump into that, as I was thinking about the class this week, I just wanted to be sure I could clarify what we're about here and why. So I put together this slide. And I wanted those big block letters, Jesus. I don't want us to come away from these 5 weeks of classes thinking that archaeology is more important than it is, or less important for that matter. But I'm certainly not holding this class to suggest that any of us need to be experts in archaeology. We don't. We need to be followers of Jesus. So, Donna, I liked your explanation just moments ago that we can leverage archaeology to give us confidence about the historical reliability of things in the Bible. And that points us to Jesus. And I just want to keep this front and center. Our path here is we're followers of Jesus. We're not archaeologists. A verse that really has remained prominent in my mind is this verse from 1 Peter 3. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. And as I've pondered this verse over the past couple of years, the two key reasons I try to keep my focus on. Number one, what are the reasons we believe Jesus of Nazareth was a real historical person? And as you clearly recognize, archaeology has a lot to say about that. And the coins we're going to look at today are specifically addressing this number one reason. I think the second reason that's most prominent in my thinking is, well, if Jesus was a real historical person, who was he? What are the reasons we believe that this Jesus was both Lord and Messiah? We're going to talk about one artifact next week that speaks to this reason number two. But our focus today is going to be on reason number one. So with that little intro, I thought it would be good for you guys to know kind of what's in the background of my mind as I'm thinking about these topics and put it together. I really I really do want to have a focus on Christ. What are the reasons that we know he existed in history? And therefore, the question asked throughout the Gospels, as you all three know, people kept asking, who is this guy? Who is this guy that even the wind and waves obey him? The Sanhedrin at his trial, they're trying to figure out who he was. Pilate, when Jesus had his audience with Pilate, who are you? What have you been doing? What are you about? So that's always been the question. Who is this guy, Jesus? So today we're going to focus primarily on reason number one, and we're going to look at a series of coins that are specifically called out in the gospel narratives. And you may have already figured out that this topic is page 20 and 21 in your handout, in your booklet. I guess I emailed the file to, well, Donna's got a booklet. I emailed the file to Dee, but it's page 20 and 21. So you'll find most of the detail that I'm going to talk about today captured on those 2 pages. So let's jump in here. The coins of the 4 Gospels. I'm focused on coins today because they are a particularly persistent artifact from ancient times. And that's because several reasons. The main one is they're made of durable materials, pretty resistant to corrosion, and that's bronze and silver, sometimes gold. We're going to look at bronze and silver coins today. I think, strangely enough, another reason these coins survive to our day from ancient times is they get lost easily, believe it or not. But the key thing is they're really durable and somewhat corrosion resistant, not entirely, but somewhat. And in the 4 Gospels, the stories of Jesus, what I found is that there are 6 specific denominations of coin, which I'm going to call the lepton, quadrantes, the drachmae, the denarian, didrachman, and stater. And the coolest thing of all is that many examples of these coins have survived to our day. Now, the 3 of you, well, no, Ellen has seen this before. 2 of you are saying, hold on, Jim. I've read the Gospels a lot, and those words are not in my Bible. So if you will allow me just a moment to say a quick word about words. Let me explain these words that I'm using. So here's an example. I'm going to start with an English word, drachma, and here it is in the original Greek. Now, I don't read Greek, and I'm not aware that you guys do either. Maybe you do. I don't read it, so that doesn't help me much. So to get back to the original Greek, I'm going to use a transliteration, drachme. And a transliteration is transferring a word from the alphabet of one language into another language in order to show how that word is pronounced. It's a letter for letter substitution, or perhaps more accurately, a sound for sound substitution. So I've got English letters, but they're arranged in such a way that I get a sense of the Greek pronunciation, drachme. They also roll the R. So those are the words that I'm using today, not the common English word. I'm not going to try to read Greek because I can't. I'm going to use the transliteration. Now, we also have translations, and a translation is different. A translation tells you the meaning of a word originally written in another language. So about this word drachma, let's look at a couple examples. Here's the King James. This word is often translated pieces of silver. Well, in 17th century England, when the King James was published, the Greek word drachma would have been unfamiliar to the English speakers of that day, but pieces of silver had meaning. So that's a good translation. In the NIV, a translation for us 21st century Christians, it's called silver coins. Well, that's a good translation for us because we don't use the term pieces of silver, except those of us who've read the right novels about pirates and such. And we also may not be familiar with a coin called a drachma, though we may have heard of it. So that's what I want to get at, that the translations lose something. In fact, you'll notice here, pieces of silver, silver coin, those phrases have a useful meaning, but they aren't specific coins. For instance, I could say to you that a nickel or a quarter is a coin with some silver in it, but that's different than saying pieces of silver or silver coin. A drachma, on the other hand, is a specific denomination of coin. And that's what I'm after with these 6 words. These are specific denominations of coin from Jesus' day. All 6 are known archaeological artifacts. And let's take a look. Any questions here on this explanation of translation and transliteration? All right.
Well, Jim, yeah, real quick. So if we went back to the original Greek in our Aramaic, would it have these words in it rather than silver coins?
Yes, that's exactly the point.
Okay.
I'm using a Bible reference online to see the Greek wording, compare it to the English, and discovering where specific coins have been called out.
Okay.
And I'll give us an example. Let's start with the lepton. So what is the lepton? It's a very small value. It's a very tiny coin. It's a very low value bronze coin. Bronze is a combination of copper and tin, mostly copper. And it was minted in Judah before the Roman occupation. And here's an example of a lepton. They're tiny, they're crudely made, but we know very well where these coins came from and who made them. And this this Greek word lepton is used 3 times in the original Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. And here's the verses. So you guys can go look those up. I'm going to just use the example of Mark 12. And this is a really familiar story. Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury. And many that were rich cast in much. But there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. Now, this is from the King James, and I think we're all familiar with the story of the widow's mites, right? You've heard that phrase. Well, in the original Greek manuscript, it would have said, she threw in 2 lepton. And then we'll talk about farthing on the next slide. So what she threw into the treasury was 2 of these Jewish coins called the lepton. Okay. And this is, as I've said, this is a coin that has survived to our day. In fact, this coin is so numerous that coin collectors can buy them today. And I have actually purchased this coin. I have this coin. I've got it in this little coin case right here. I bought one of these. Now, this is not a lepton, it's a pruta. And I thought I was buying a lepton at the time. If back in the day, if a lepton was the 1 penny coin, the pruta was the 2 penny coin. So this is a coin from the same era, almost 8 centuries BC. You can see what the inscriptions are and the detail front and back. So this is kind of the big brother to this ancient Jewish coin called the lepton. That's the one that Jesus spoke about. So I find this fascinating. This is more than a 2,000-year-old coin. And I'm not a coin collector. This is half of my coin collection, but it's pretty fun to have this piece. Any questions? Let's continue then in Mark 12, and that brings us to our second coin, the quadrantes. Here's an example of a quadrantes. So as we were reading, there came a certain poor widow. She threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. The original Greek, though, is quadrantes. That makes sense. A farthing was a coin minted by King James in the 17th century. So in the original Greek, quadrantes. What's that? It's a Greek coin. It's bronze. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a Greek word for a bronze coin, but it's a Roman coin, and it was the lowest Roman coin in circulation, lowest value Roman coin in circulation in the day. So this was the equivalent to the Roman penny, okay, of the day. This word is used only one other time in the original Greek manuscripts, and that's in Matthew 5:26. That's in your notes, and you can refer to that. So what we see here is we've got these 2 mites, these Jewish coins that are really, really low value. And it takes 2 of those to equal a Roman penny, a quadrantes. So knowing just a bit about these coins, we see what just how poor this widow was. She wasn't even putting pennies in. She was putting in this decades-old Jewish coin that wasn't even, it was still had value, but it wasn't the Roman currency of the day, the quadrantes. And I really like how the translation of the King James works here, because the farthing, as best I can tell, was the lowest value coin minted by King James back when the King James Bible was produced. So the farthing was the penny of the day in 17th century England. The quadrantes was the penny of the day in the Roman Empire. But the lepton was from a previous Jewish kingdom decades before. The mite, it turns out, is from the European continent, maybe from Netherlands or Belgium area, because of trade across the English Channel. It was known in England, and it was just an even lower value coin than the farthing. So as I've thought about how the King James translates this, they do a really good job. The farthing being the smallest coin of the realm, like the quadrantes, and the mite being this even lower value coin minted elsewhere. It's just like the lepton. So it's really fun how all this opened up. You get a sense of how poor the widow was and how small a coin she put in there. So Also notice that the idea of the widow putting in 2 mites, which makes a farthing, to us 21st century Americans, we have no idea what a mite or a farthing is. We just kind of have to imagine. So hopefully this gives us a little idea. Let's go on to our third coin. This is the denarian, and this was one of many versions of silver denarian were widely used in the Roman Empire from 200 BC to about 8200. So this coin had a 400-year run. It's a Roman coin and was minted by the empire of the day. And in Jesus' day, it's widely thought that a denarian was considered a day's wages for a common laborer. The denarian appears a lot in the New Testament, 16 times. And those 16 references are in your handout. So if you want to look those up, they're in all 4 of the Gospels, and I even threw in Revelation. It appears there once. So silver coin, a day's wages for a laborer. And I'm going to use this from these 16 uses. I'm going to look at Matthew 20. Again, this is a familiar passage. It's the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, where we read, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius, or in Greek, denarian, for the day, and sent them into the vineyard." Makes complete sense. Day's wages for 1 denarian. So this was a common coin of the day. It's the most spoken about coin of the 6 I'm going to look at. And here's a close-up of that denarian. Again, this is the second coin I've collected. I've got it here also in this little case. It's very tiny, but the pictures here show you what it looks like, and a little explanation of the 2 Roman gods on the heads and tail sides. This coin was also minted decades, almost 9 decades BC. We know who was ruler in Rome, and we know this coin was minted for 2 years. So it's pretty cool. Again, I've got this pair of 2,000-year-old coins, and we know for sure that they were still in circulation in Judah in Jesus' day. Pretty fun. All right. Boy, I barely touched the mouse, and there we go. Here's our 4th coin. This is called the drachmae. And here's an example drachmae. I just love this graphic, this imprint of the owl with the big eyes. This is kind of a famous coin because of that depiction of an owl. A drachmae is a silver coin of ancient Greece, and it was used throughout the Mediterranean for 10 centuries, for 1,000 years. And the fact that it was used so widely and for so many centuries is, again, an example of the incredible influence that Alexander the Great had on the ancient Near East. He spread Greek influence everywhere he conquered, including their coins. And for whatever reason, it was a lasting influence. Now, the word drachmae only appears in one passage in the original Greek, and it's this one right here in Luke 15, the parable of the lost coin. And again, this is a really familiar parable to us. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." Well, in the original Greek, it would read something like, suppose a woman had 10 drachmae and she loses 1 drachmae. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, search carefully? When she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost drachmae." That's how the Greek text reads. Pretty fun. I haven't collected these coins. Ellen's relieved. They cost several hundreds of dollars, it seems, especially if you buy one in good condition. So I'll stick with 2. But that's kind of fun. This widow, she's not saving in Jewish coins or Roman coins, but her 10 coins are this Greek coin, the drachmae. All right, let's go on to let's see, this will be the 5th coin, if I'm counting correctly. And this one's called the didrachm. Here's a picture of one. It's got this cool image of the horse prancing on the backside. This is a silver coin of ancient Greece. It's got a value of 2 drachmae. So this is a 2 drachmae coin. In fact, you can see the drach syllable here, and die means 2. So you can see the 2 drachmae meaning in the word didrachm. Again, this word is only used in one passage in Matthew 17, where we read that after Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" Well, in the original Greek, strangely enough, there is no mention of temple tax. The way it reads is the collectors of the didrachm came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the didrachman?" And so the translators have apparently had to use other historical sources to understand that this coin, the didrachm, referred to the annual tax paid at the temple. And so this was not a Roman tax. This was a tax paid to the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Every Jewish male over the age of 20 was expected to pay this tax each year. And so collectors, this is not like Matthew, the Roman tax collector. This is the collectors of the temple tax, a different group of tax collectors. They're asking Peter, "Well, haven't you paid your tax? Hasn't Jesus paid his tax?" All right. The story then continues and leads us to our 6th coin, because slightly later in Matthew 17, we now have Jesus speaking to Peter. Peter raises this question of the temple tax with Jesus, and Jesus responds, "But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours." Okay, so it makes sense. A single 4 drachma coin would pay the tax for 2 adult men. But the Greek text says you will find a stater. What is a stater? Well, here's one right here. This is also a cool coin because it's got the winged horse, the Pegasus, on the tails side. It's a silver coin of ancient Greece, and it has a value of 4 drachmae. So now we've got these 3 Greek coins, the drachmae, the didrachm, the stater. 1 drachmae value, 2 drachmae, 4 drachmae value. And the word stater, the Greek word, is only used once in this verse in the New Testament. So just in this one little episode with the temple tax talking to Peter about this tax, temple tax collectors talking to Peter, and then Jesus talking to Peter, we get introduced to these 2 Greek coins. Now, here's another little tangent that is interesting. I heard a speaker just last year who noted that Jesus had come back to Capernaum with all his disciples, but the tax collectors only inquired about Peter and Jesus paying the tax. That speaker inferred that the other disciples were not yet 20 years of age. He thinks only Jesus and Peter were over the age of 20 and liable to pay the tax. The way that speaker put it is that the disciples were literally teenagers. Jesus had a youth group. It's the way he put it. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but I think it's pretty likely that was the case, that the other 11 disciples, other than Peter, they were very young men. They were teenagers. That's pretty weird to think about, isn't it? Okay, with that little distraction, I've now covered all 6 of these coins that are specifically called out, specific denominations of coins. And along the way, I've mentioned that the lepton was Jewish, the quadrantes and the denarian were Roman, and the last 3 coins, the drachmae, the didrachman, and the stater, were Greek. And it may seem odd that we have such a mixture of coins, but let's for a minute go back to the timeline of Judah's independence and foreign rule. This is a little snippet of a larger graphic I used in my class in November, this idea of Judah being independent or subject to foreign rule over time. And I've got about 400 years from the arrival of the Persians in the 4th century through just the late 1st century. Here's where end of the 1st century, John is writing Revelation. Here's Jesus' crucifixion. Here's his birth. So, I said arrival of the Persians. I was wrong. This is where the Persian Empire falls to Alexander. So about 331. And that sets up about a 150-year period where Judah itself is under Greek rule, a period called the Greek Empire or the Seleucid Empire, same name. And back in November, you may recall that about 165 BC, Judas Maccabeus and his brothers rebelled, and they were successful gaining at least some measure of independence. And for a period of a century, from 165 to 63 BC, there were Jewish kings and a Jewish kingdom called Hasmonean. It wasn't called the Maccabean kingdom because the Maccabeus family was from a larger clan called the Hasmon or Hasmonean clan. So this 100-year period is known as Hasmonean Judah. And then Rome took over about the year 63 BC and were in charge right on through the period of Christ and the early church. So the coins that are spoken about here in Jesus' day, it makes sense because they come from the Greeks, from this Jewish kingdom, and from the Romans. So we see the impact of all three of those periods of Jewish history. Pretty fun. So here's my red letter edition of the coins. The 5 coins in red, Jesus spoke about himself. Those words are recorded as being in his mouth, spoken by him. And all of these coins have survived from that early 1st century period till today, some of them in such large quantity that a low cost collector like me, a low budget collector like me, can, I've bought 2 of them. And these coins to me are a really tangible connection to Jesus' life and to his words, reminding us that the events of these 4 gospels occurred in a known historical time and place. These coins are rooted in the history of Judah itself. That's pretty cool. And these coins leave me with a, whoops, I'm jumping ahead and I did not mean to. These coins leave me with a real sense of awe that we have these little artifacts left from this period. And I'll close with this passage from John chapter 1. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And these coins really drive that home for me, that Jesus was a life and flesh person, and he talked about real coins in a real time and place. And this just encourages me in my faith and in the confidence that Jesus was a real person. I find that to be just wonderful. All right. Any thoughts here?
Yes, Jim.
Yeah.
The coins, did they lose their value or change value when they were in different eras, like the Greeks and the Romans? Did they keep those coins, or did they just devalue them?
That's a good question. I'm guessing it was, Donna, I really don't know the answer. I would guess that the coins had local value. The widow put the 2 lepton into the Jewish treasury at the temple, but in Rome, they probably would have been worthless. They probably would have had no more value than the bronze they were made from, which is of some value. Sometimes monetary value back in that day was determined by the weight of the copper, the weight of the bronze, the weight of the silver. So for instance, you may wonder about a term like the talent, the parable of the talents. That doesn't refer to coins, that refers to a weight of silver. So you could have had any kind of silver coin, as long as it was the right total weight, it was considered a talent of money, talent of value. Does that make sense? So that's about as much as I can say. The other thing that seems to happen is that these coins are kind of odd shaped as they age. This one is oblong, it's not round. And apparently there was some practice back in the day that if you got a silver coin, you might take a knife and shave a little sliver of silver off the edge and save that little sliver, because the denarian would still be worth a denarian, but you had a little bit of the silver. And over time that could add up, and you could use the silver as value to buy something else. So yeah, interesting.
Another way to cheat the government, right?
I suppose,
Yeah.
or cheat whoever you're paying the denarian to.
Right.
We've got a couple extra minutes.
Silver.
I didn't think I'd have time, but I do have 4 additional slides that I thought I would mention since we're talking about money. I've already introduced the denarian, but here is a different denarian minted at a different time. And this coin connects to the story in Matthew 22, where Jesus says, "Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarian. And he asked them, "Whose image is on it? Whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. And then we all know Jesus' following line, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's." Well, here's a denarian with the image of Tiberius on the head's side. And we know from Jesus' day that Tiberius was the emperor in Rome at that time. And this is his denarian, minted during his reign. So, though we don't know for sure if it was exactly this coin that the people showed to Jesus that day, it's pretty likely that this was it. And this apparent connection to Jesus' life makes the Tiberius denarian very highly collectible. And Ellen can be relieved. I don't have plans to go buy one of these. But as you can imagine, people who are interested in ancient coins in the Bible, this would be a very cool one. Another coin that people think about a lot is the Tyrian shekel. Here's a picture of that. This was a silver coin minted in Tyre, city of Tyre. And I'm guessing the 3 of you have an idea where that was. That was a coastal city on the Mediterranean to the north of Judah and the north of Galilee. It's in present day Lebanon or Syria, one of the two, I'm not sure which. It was a trading town, a merchant town, and they had minted this silver coin called the shekel. It had a value of 4 drachmae, so it's like a stater, but it was not minted by the Greeks, minted in Tyre. But here's the catch, the term shekel is not used in the original Greek manuscripts. At least I haven't found it anywhere. So this coin isn't specifically mentioned in the New Testament. But in Jerusalem, we know from other sources that in Jerusalem at the temple, this was the only coin acceptable for paying that annual temple tax that Peter and Jesus had a conversation about. And the Tyrian shekel was highly prized because it was 94% silver. And a lot of the silver coins made by Rome back in the day were like 80% silver. The purity of the silver just wasn't quite as high. So strangely enough, the priests in the temple only accepted this coin as legal tender, as it were, for paying that annual temple tax. And the pilgrims to Jerusalem. Jews in the day lived all over. They lived in Judah and Galilee. They lived in Babylon. They lived in Alexandria, Egypt. There were Jews in many parts of the Mediterranean already in Jesus' day. And they would arrive at Jerusalem on pilgrimage, carrying whatever coin they had from their homeland. But when they got to the temple, they would try to pay their tax, and it would have to be exchanged for this Tyrian shekel. And for that reason, money exchange was big business in Jerusalem. So
Got it. Mm.
that's why you have money changers. And that leads us to these two stories about Jesus clearing the temple. You have John chapter 2. He scattered the coins of the money changers right there. And then we have a similar story in Matthew 21, Mark 11, Luke 19. Jesus entered the temple. He overturned the tables of the money changers. So, yeah, just the fact that this currency exchange, I mean, we have currency exchanges at our airports today. We don't think much about it, but this was going on right inside the temple, and Jesus was not happy about it. Well, it seems to be tied to this requirement to pay the tax with the Tyrian shekel. The Tyrian shekel is the source of other speculation because probably the most famous coins in the New Testament are the 30 silver coins paid to Judas to betray Jesus. But unfortunately, in Matthew 26 and 27, where we get this story, it doesn't name the denomination of coin. It uses a Greek word, argyrion, which simply means money or silver coins. It's not a specific denomination of coin. It's more a generic descriptor. So through the years, as people have read about Judas' betrayal, there's plenty of room for speculation. What coin did they pay Judas with? And the most obvious solution is they paid him with Tyrian shekels, because that's what they collected for the tax. That was the most common coin in their treasury, it would appear. Likewise, people conjecture that when Peter pulled that coin out of the mouth of the fish that we read about in Matthew 17, he may have pulled out a Tyrian shekel, because that's the only coin acceptable in Jerusalem to actually pay the tax. Except that Matthew 17, the original manuscripts specifically say stater, which is not Tyrian, it's a Greek coin.
Mm.
Whatever the case, you've got these three connections to the life of Jesus: the money exchange in the temple, the payment to Judas, and the coin in the fish's mouth, all of which might have been this Tyrian shekel. It makes this coin, again, a very highly collectible coin. This coin of really high quality, really good condition, can be hundreds to thousands of dollars. And another place I ran into this was at the Denver Museum when the Dead Sea Scrolls came back in 2018, because in that exhibit, there were a few artifacts from Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls, of course, were recovered. And they had some interpretation of what life was like at Qumran. And one of the things they found in the ruins there was underneath some of a floor, they dug up a clay pot filled with Tyrian shekels.
Oh.
They actually had that pot and the shekels in a display case at the museum as part of this traveling exhibit. And which is interesting. It tells us a little something about Qumran, though we still have to speculate. Were those shekels on the way to Jerusalem to pay the tax for the whole community? That's one possibility. The other possibility is that the Qumran community was primarily Levitical priests who would go to Jerusalem, serve their time, get paid in shekels, and then return to Qumran. So this collection of shekels could have been their payment for their season of service at the temple. So that's shekels coming from Jerusalem. So we don't really know, but that's just another case, another example where I got to see these shekels in person, and coins pop up in the whole history. So, all right. Wasn't sure I would have time for those last 4 slides, but I did. Plenty of time. I must be talking fast this morning.
Tim, I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Early on in this morning, you showed a coin that was the back of from the back and side of a soldier's head. I don't see that in the book here, in my note, in the handout.
That was probably this denarian, is that right?
Yeah, I think it was a denarian. Yeah, that one.
And you're right, Ellie, this,
Yeah, that one.
yeah, I used the Tiberius denarian photo in the handout
Ah,
on page
okay.
20. That's the Tiberius denarian. And here I used this denarian from 88 BC, which is the one that I have collected.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they're both denarians. Make sense?
Denarian. They're just different, like our quarters or something. They're just different.
Different imprints. Yeah. It's like
Different imprints, same amount, same value.
same coin. That's right. Remember,
Okay.
this coin was used for 400 years, and every new emperor would come out with a new issue.
Got it. Got
Oh,
it.
boy.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, thought I'd.
And you're
Okay.
right. This is a depiction not of an emperor, but the god Mars.
Oh, that was mine. Right. Okay.
Looking over. Yeah, it's a view looking over the shoulder. His face in profile.
Yeah. So a warrior, a god warrior. Okay.
Yeah, Mars was the god of war, and then in the chariot here is Victoria, goddess of victory.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jim, I appreciate you referring that to the money changers. You kind of wonder, what were they changing money for? Did they need to have more money to buy, the birds, or did they have to have different kinds of money? But this really clicks that it was people coming from all around that needed to change their money. And so what would they do when they changed the money with the money that they got from the people that had come around? Did they just keep it? Did they remint it? Did they do something else with it because it wasn't good at the temple?
Oh, the money exchangers, what did they do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure their exchange rate was such that they came out ahead, for starters. And second of all, there was apparently demand for all the coins, either as coins or as metals that could be melted down and reminted into new coins, new coins of the day. So I certainly, Donna, don't have any details about how that would have worked, but I'm sure the money exchange guys made a good living.
Well, that was what Jesus was so upset about, the money changers.
Yeah, was it
They were cheating everybody.
Well, did they charge extravagant amounts, or did he just object to that commercial exchange actually happening in the temple courts itself? I think that could be a part of it too. Yeah,
because he yelled at them that they were thieves, and
that
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But Donna, you're exactly right. It really does give roots to the story. Why were there money changers at all? Why was Jesus upset? We can answer the first part. Why were there money changers at all? It's because of this coin. That was really fun to learn about, and it gave context to these stories. The other thing that was striking about this, which I forgot to mention, is that this story in John 2, as you might guess, this is very early in the story of Jesus. I think it's his first recorded visit to Jerusalem with the disciples. This is early in his public ministry. But this event in Matthew, Mark, and Luke occurs at the very end, because Jesus has this is Palm Sunday. This is the triumphal entry, Jesus riding the donkey in Jerusalem. The first thing he does after getting off the donkey is he enters the temple and clears it. So it appears that he did this twice, at the beginning and at the end of his public ministry. And I hadn't seen that before. Because these three stories are clearly right after the triumphal entry, the Palm Sunday. That's his last week of his life. This story in John 2 is clearly at the very beginning of his public ministry. So
and I don't see that in the Bible. They didn't really say that this was the second one. They just mentioned, so you kind of wonder, well, was it the same one? Yeah, we heard about him doing it, but it makes sense that there was two different issues at two different times.
That's the appearance to me, that these are two different occasions.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they appear at such different points in his public ministry.
So we should not assume that there was just one cleansing of the temple, that there was maybe another.
That's what it looks like to me. So what do you think? Is that a fun little tour?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun information.
I'll just,
very interesting.
Yeah.
didn't mean to pull up that slide. I wanted to get this one. There we go. I'll park us here as we finish. So
I just find it interesting that they use that coin from Tyre and I know it's because of the silver content, but it just seemed interesting that so much of that coinage would have been in Jerusalem or in Israel for them to use for the payment of the tax. It just yeah, you would think it would be more a Roman coin or something like that.
yeah, it's a much more complicated monetary environment than we're used to. We deal all in American minted coins, but yeah, Tyre is another source. Greek, Roman, Jewish. Yeah, I think currency was very fluid back in those days. And D, that the temple would use this coin, is really weird because of this head here. To the Phoenicians, this is the god Baal.
Oh, interesting.
To the Greeks, they considered this to be a mythical character, Heracles.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently the Jews considered this character to be Beelzebub. And yet here you've got this coin with this this god depicted on it, and that's the one coin they wanted at the temple. That's
yeah,
that's really ironic.
Well,
really.
and then God
interesting.
had said to not make a graven image of him, so they wouldn't have known what God looked like, nor would they have made a coin, minted a coin themselves that would have had their God on it.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's a certain hypocrisy here,
Yeah.
and I think it has to do with it's economic. This was the most valuable silver coin. It was the highest purity. And maybe it was an emphasis on the Levitical or the Torah principles of you only brought a pure sacrifice, not a blemished animal, but a unblemished animal.
Mhm.
Maybe the principle here was you didn't bring diluted 80% silver. You brought the nearly pure silver, the 94% silver. That was from Tyre.
No matter
So
what, no matter what image was on it, huh?
yeah, that I'm guessing that was more the emphasis here.
Hmm.
But anyway, we don't totally know, but I can only suggest what might have been the concern. I think the Levites and the priests were concerned about monetary value. I think it was more,
Mhm.
they didn't want any copper coins, anything of low value. They wanted high value silver.
And I had not thought that they were paid in any coins, you know.
Apparently, the priests who would come and serve for a few weeks at a time did receive payment for their service.
Because God had said for them to, for everybody to bring their bread and to bring their grain and to bring their animals, and that was going to be payment for the Levite priests.
Right.
And so that to think that they had coinage that then paid them, was that in God's will that they would be paid in those coins? Because if they were paid in coins with another God on them, God wouldn't have approved.
That's the irony of this
It is.
particular coin.
And maybe that was the start of the greed that the priests had, is that they got paid in coinage and value. And so they could be of more worth than just being fed bread and grain and meat. They got more out of being a priest than what they were
That could have been
noted to be.
part of Jesus' anger at the money changers, was the fact that this coin was somehow dishonoring to God. I don't know.
Mhm.
Good question.
Oh, it
Does-
makes a lot more sense to me now. The priests wouldn't have wanted to lose their position whatsoever if they were getting paid coinage and
Hmm,
value
yeah,
in that way, because that was money that they could use outside of the temple and outside of their families and home.
yeah. It was part of their profession.
Mhm.
You can think about John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, who we know his story, I guess, from Luke, how he was serving his appointed time at the temple, and he had the encounter with the angel. He was struck dumb. He finished his service and returned home. Remember how that story goes?
Mhm.
Well, he had some season, X number of weeks or months. He was on duty, uh, serving in the temple as the priest, but then he would return home.
And wasn't that the case with Jeremiah too, that his father was a priest?
Oh, I don't recall.
And
Good.
he was expected to be part of the priesthood. And Jeremiah was hearing voices from God telling him that that wasn't what he wanted him to do.
Hey, that's a good point. I don't know Jeremiah's story, so I can't speak to that. That's very possible.
Well, I think Jeremiah was warning the people at the time that the Babylonians were coming in and taking over.
Yes, he
And
was active just
Mhm.
before Judah fell.
So therefore, he didn't feel like he could be a priest. He couldn't do the activities of the priest. His job was to warn the people and
Ah,
tell them.
cool.
Hmm.
So, pretty interesting things. Interesting details come out from the stories of these coins, but certainly these 6 are the ones that I'm most attracted to, because they're in the original New Testament, the Greek manuscripts, the Greek text of the New Testament, and 5 of these coins Jesus spoke about personally. At least that's how the stories are handed down to us. So that really creates such a tangible connection.
Mhm.
I love it.
I find this interesting and kind of funny and ironical that the quote is, if you want to know about the history or what's been happening, follow the money.
Follow the money. I hadn't thought about that, Don. I like that. Follow the money.
Oh, that's good, Jim. You should use that. You have to give Donna credit, but that's yes.
I will
In the
follow.
words of Donna Prokaski, if you want to know, follow the money.
You really want to know what's going on, follow the money.
Follow the money. Oh, funny. That's good. All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining this morning. Thanks for some interesting questions and comments.
Yeah.
And between the PowerPoint slides that I've sent you and these 2 pages, 2021, in your handout, you've got plenty of resources there too.
Yep. I enjoyed this class, Jim. Once again, thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you're going to like next week's too, and that will wrap us up next week. So
Next week is the end?
next week is our 5th week. That'll be,
Oh, my, it went by fast.
oh,
All right.
good. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. I'm not covering every artifact in the handout, but I've covered quite a bit of it.
Mhm.
More than
Not?
most of them, so.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that really deserve some more time and attention than just the 1-pager. Some of the artifacts, 1 page is enough. That's good.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But
Well,
some
the
of
Dead
them
Sea Scrolls is an amazing study.
are,
And it gave me a lot of curiosity to search a little bit more and to hear, other opinions as such. But
oh, good. If it
yeah,
makes
it was this.
curious.
They were talking about Qumran, is what they were talking about, where
Okay.
the caves were, and talking about was it the Essenes that lived in Qumran?
Yes, they
Yeah.
think it was this
Mm.
community called the Essenes, who
Mm-hmm.
appear to be a Jewish sect competing with or separate from the Pharisees, Sadducees, the Zealots, the other Jewish sects of the day. Jewish faith was kind of fragmented, and there were different interpretations and different ideas about what was the true Judaism. And
So they were probably part of the Levi or Aaron sect.
well, it's thought, that's one of the theories, that they were a community of Levitical priests. That's one of the possibilities. We don't know that for sure, but That certainly is one of the prominent thoughts. And they objected to the approach taken by the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the whole culture of Roman ruled Jerusalem. So they removed themselves and lived in isolation on the shore of the Dead Sea, lived in the desert, basically.
Mhm.
So they, another touch point to the Gospels is that John the Baptist may have been an Essene.
Hmm.
And the verse that he uses whenever one commentator, I haven't actually checked this, seems like when John the Baptist is mentioned, there's also a reference to Isaiah of the voice of one calling in the wilderness, make way, path for the Lord. I'm paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a key verse for the Essenes in Qumran.
Is that right?
And that has led to speculation that John the Baptist may have been an Essene or spent time there.
That his dad would have been an Essene
Maybe a
Levi priest?
We don't know.
Well, wouldn't that be something interesting to find out?
Yeah, just think how much we'll have to learn.
Oh, I know. There's always something more to learn.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope this has filled in a few little blank places and maybe given you some topics to go read about and learn more about. That'd be great if it spurs your curiosity.
I'm always ready, Jim. You just come up with a topic and say you have some information to teach me. I'm willing.
Well, I've got one more hour next week for sure.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again so much.
All
Bye,
right.
Dee. Bye, Ellen. Bye, Jim.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you then.
Bye.